Maybe as a form of introduction, my name is Hansen Msongweni. Also from SARS, but from the segment we mostly deal with the SMME, which is the traders and travelers more around the imports and the export space of our business. As the colleagues were presenting from the tech side, we will be presenting from the customs side, which is mostly the import and export, which are goods that are being exported out of the country and goods that are imported in the country by traders and travelers. Our presentation will cover the purpose, then a bit of background of the unit within SARS, and then we will talk to the procedures, and then we will talk to the import and export, the clearance process, and then we will talk about the punitive measures that need to be taken, and then we will talk about the appeal process, and then I think the turnover, the colleagues have already covered that, so we won't cover. And then we will then talk more around the forms and the documents and where to get them within our website. So the purpose of this presentation is just to highlight the import and export process for the traders and travelers within the customs and excise space. And also the SMME traders and travelers is a segment in SARS that aims to develop insight and have a deep understanding of the unique risk needs of this sector so as to formulate supportive and progressive strategies. So from where we are sitting as an organization, we feel like we're more relevant to focus mostly around the travelers and the traders within the SMME space. And most of the people who are doing tourism are mostly travelers and traders that are actually trading in the small scale. So they go out of the country, they find something that they need to buy. So we will just talk about the process then that they need to follow from the international perspective. And also, we believe that if these traders and travelers understand their tax obligation, we can achieve voluntary compliance that will ensure efficiency, that will ensure that our economy is growing faster and quicker. Because if people have now understand the process for import and export perspective, then the movement in our ports will be efficiently, and then they will have a very good experience to come in and out of our country. Then the SARS mandate collect the revenue that is due to ensure compliance with the tax and the custom legislation. Our vision, as it highlighted by our colleagues, is to build a smart modern SARS with unquestionable integrity, trusted and admired. And then our strategic intent as an organization, as an enterprise, is to develop a tax and a custom system that is based on voluntary compliance. Then to provide more clarity on this strategic intent, we've adopted and employed the 9 strategic objectives. But the most critical one that I want to highlight, we talked to this presentation, is the one where we said we want to make it easier and simple for the traders and the travelers within this segment to comply, and also create an awareness and clarity as well as certainty. And we believe that if the travelers and the tourists have the clarity and the awareness, the level of compliance will voluntarily improve. And then make it hard to not comply. That is only relevant to those that after we have provided the clarity, we have made the environment conducive, they still do not comply. But what is more critical around one of our key strategic objectives is to work with and through stakeholders to improve the tax system. So we believe that if we partner with stakeholders, both internally within SARS and externally with other government institutions, we can actually improve the compliance, and we can also assist the taxpayers out there to comply with their relevant tax obligation. So the key SMME trader and traveler approach is based on these 4 critical strategic objectives, as I previously highlighted in our previous slide. The first one is to provide the clarity to taxpayer with awareness, certainty, and tax obligation. So we do that by ensuring that we go out and provide some awareness, we do some outreach, but we also do education and training, publication and interpretation of the policies. So we understand and appreciate that the SARS Customs and Excise Act is not relevantly an easy act. So what is critical is for us to provide necessary training and provide education to the travelers and the traders out there. And most importantly, to interpret the relevant policies and the relevant piece of the legislation, so that once they understand these policies and they understand this in a more simpler and easier way, and then the clarity will be achieved, and then the compliance will improve. And also we talk about the services. For one to import and export, you need to register with SARS. And for one to register, it means you need to understand the processes and the requirement for registering. So part of us improving the service to ensure that we streamline that process of registration, we make it easier and simple. And also we make the declaration and the filing process is so simple. And we also go out there and we communicate about these processes so that when people think of traveling, they must understand as this is a good experience rather than a frustration process. It also ensures that our contact center, when you call digitally, you get the service that you deserve, and you get agent that are properly empowered with the knowledge that at any given time, any taxpayer, any traveler can contact us and get the service. But also, if there's payment that is due, what to pay, how to pay, and what are the expectations if you want to go abroad with certain goods, and what are the expectations when you go abroad and you decide to buy something and then you want to come in one of our ports. So that's the payment process that we also want to streamline and communicate to the travelers and the tourists out there. And also, we believe that for us to achieve a compliance and to achieve a best service and easy flow in our ports for tourists, we need to ensure that our digital approach is understood and it's known out there. And we want to encourage the tourists to utilize this digital process because it makes it easier. In some instances within our act, it allows them to declare things before they can even arrive our ports of entries and our airports. So by the time they arrive here, by the press of a button in our system, we can be able to pull the data and ensure that they have a smooth flow. So the enforcement element comes as a last result after we've provided clarity, we've made the service to be easier and simple. And then still, if we are still confronted with taxpayers, with tourists, with travelers that still do not want to comply, and then we should be able to establish the intent and then enforce the relevant legislation by engaging our enforcement colleagues. But what is more important and very critical to us is that we can achieve a smooth services in our ports, in our airports. We can achieve a trade facilitation in our ports within the custom and excise without ensuring that we have a strong relationship with our stakeholders. This strong relationship probably is one of the reasons we're here today to partner with you to ensure that we build a very strong relationship. And this relationship will ensure that the taxpayers, the tourists, the travelers, they actually benefit through empowering them with the knowledge through yourselves as stakeholders. So the custom procedures are built within our Customs and Excise Act 91 of 1964. And it's under review at the moment, but as we speak, this is the relevant piece of legislation that is the basic foundation for moving goods into and from South Africa. And every person or company must be registered when conducting import and export. So basically, you can't just wake up and just decide that I want to take goods out of the country, or take goods into the country, you need to register with us. Once you register, you can register as an importer or you can register as an exporter. But at the same time, if you are just a tourist or a traveler, you are coming once off, there is also a process for you that you need to follow, whereby you don't need to follow the long a documentation process. Then an easy, simple process within a short space of a minute, you can be registered and then you can be in our records. Then we can be able to allow you to import or export. So now this is just the customs declaration process. So basically, what does that mean? It means that if you are an importer or an exporter, or for that matter, you want to import goods to and from South Africa, you can actually have a custom broker. In most instances, these are the clearing agents that actually assist by declaring the goods on behalf of the importer and exporter. At the same time, mostly these are used on high volume of goods or in big goods that are being imported and exported. But if you are a traveler or you are a taxpayer, you can actually do this process yourself. But when you enter our ports of entry, so you put the declaration through our system, which is the first line of declaration. And once the declaration is in our system, and then you get through the EDI, which is the gateway, this electronic data exchange. And then once we do that electronic data exchange, we're able to have the declaration in our SSM, which is the service manager system. And in that process, we receive thousands and thousands of declaration, but that does not mean that all of that declaration is actually processed by a custom officer or by SARS. So we have a risk engine that selects certain goods that we regard as risk at that particular stage. And those are the goods where we will only request supporting documents. But if the goods have been identified as less risk, we are able to have the system process it by itself and then trigger the payments that need to be paid. So this is a process that takes less than 5 minutes for argument's sake. But if we request for supporting document, we are able to communicate with the person who have done the declaration that, look, your declaration is with us, but we need supporting document because we have flagged it as a certain risk. A risk could be maybe it come from a source country that we have regarded as a risk, or it come from a route where there's a possible smuggling that might have been taking place. So we just want to verify, or certain parts of the declaration, there's a tax verification that we need to do. So we then communicate electronically for the supporting document to come in. So once the supporting document arrives through our system, then we're able to assess the supporting document, and then we decide either we release the goods or not. If we release the goods, then the goods are released, and then you get the message as a trader or as a traveler that you can proceed to the next level. But if we're identifying certain concerns with the goods, and then we call for physical examination where we pull the goods, and we will have our custom officers that will verify that what you have declared, is it exactly as it was physically seen, or the payments, the tariff that we have selected for the goods, is linked to the correct payment. And then once we are happy with that process, then we say you can proceed to a port of entry or to the airport or to the goods. So all this process can happen before the goods, physical goods, can actually enter our ports of entry. Then you receive a manifest that says to you, you can proceed. So once you proceed, once you arrive in our airport, in our harbor, in our ports of entry, you produce the manifest that you would have received after you have done the electronic declaration, and then our colleagues released you. Or if they are not happy, they verify putting the goods through the scanner, and then they do the declaration, and then we release your goods. So you proceed. But if the goods are going to pass through the land border post, You will only know if your goods are ready for physical inspection or are stopped for physical inspection when you arrive at the ports of entry. So this is the easy process for mostly goods that are coming through. It's a digital, it's an electronic process, quick and simple. You can do it in the comfort of your home if you are registered with SAS, or you can use a custom broker to do that. However, if you are a traveler, you are just hitting our ports of entry because you went for holiday, or you come in South Africa, you bought something, now you want to take it out of the country. By arriving in our ports of entry or in our airport, the very same process can happen within a short space of time. It won't take more than an hour. And then the whole process through our system, our custom officers can assist you with that, and you can then proceed. So there's also critical information that you need to know if you decide to go in and out of the country, that we also work with other government agencies. So SAS work as an agent where we do some certain work on behalf of other government agencies in the ports of entry, because not all of the government departments are in the ports of entry. However, we are lucky in South Africa that some of these government departments are based in the ports of entry. For example, agriculture and ports of entry, they focus on agricultural products that are coming in and out of the country if they meet the requirement. Then you have healthy, like healthy, that other travelers meet their certificates that's supposed to produce for healthy standards. And also the goods that they bring in, if it's food product, if it's medical, the medicine meets the requirement. That is the health part of it. Then we have the iTech for goods. Then we have police for verifying for drugs and cars if there's no stolen items taken out or in of the country. And then we have the South African Reserve Bank, which we do it on their behalf, that if we are bringing money for exchange purposes, or does your money that you are taking in and out of the country is within the limits. So we do all this within the ports of entry. So mostly we cluster all this under prohibited and restricted. So prohibited are this type of goods that under no circumstances you allowed to bring in the country. And then restricted are this type of goods where for one to import that particular item, you need to meet all certain requirements. And then the status of the good must be declared. Either you have second-hand goods, or either you have used or new items. So you still need to do the declaration with SAS. And then we also have the permits, as I've highlighted, that some of the goods will need the permit, some of the goods will need certain labeling to confirm that they are coming from the country that we have a trade agreement with, because some certain agreement call for less payment. And if it comes from a country where we don't have an agreement with, you have to pay a certain amount, which is at the higher level. For permits, if you are bringing firearm, if you are bringing agricultural products, you need to apply for a permit so that we can be certain that the source of those goods or the source of that product, when it enters South Africa, it's not going to create or create problem for our local product as well as for our requirements. Just like firearms, ammunition, you will need a permit from the South African Police Service for one to come to our country with such things. So that's where the prohibited becomes a requirement. There is also exemptions. There are goods that do not need a customs declaration. For example, you can come to our ports or leave our country without necessarily making a declaration. So the example of these exemptions are human remains, are goods under international carnage. So you just get the carnage, which is a form for you to pass any of our ports of entry without going through the that process that I've highlighted above. So there are some tourists or travelers that are just coming for samples. They want to start a business and so on, and you are carrying something of no commercial value. And then we are saying, look, you can come through without necessarily making declaration. And also, if you bought something or you are traveling with goods that are not exceeding 500, and for duty purposes, you don't have to pay VAT, you don't have to pay duties for those items, you can enter with it. And then professional equipment under supervision. And also, if you're just coming for meetings, you want to display or empty containers that were used for exporting goods, now they are coming temporarily, they are empty. A good supply free of charge. If there is no value on those goods, you went for an holiday, you have received something with no value. And then for commercial samples, as I've highlighted. So these are the example of goods that are on our website as well that indicates that you don't necessarily have to undergo through the customs declaration. By the sign-off indication when you pass through our post that I'm having this, then you will pass free without necessarily paying or doing customs declaration. So we are aware that most of our tourists and travelers, when they pass through our ports of entry, they are more concerned about the money, and they also need power that when they arrive at the destination, they must be having money that they can actually to buy or to exchange along the way. So this is the requirement for the movement, of course. A traveler is only allowed to carry 25,000 in cash when entering or leaving the Republic. And above that, you need to undergo the exchange process through the Reserve Bank. Then custom officers may search and seize currency in terms of the exchange control rate. So they can pull a traveler, verify the amount, or if they find that the money is above the limits, that money can be seized for Reserve Bank. Then you have to produce documentation and also indicate what's the source of that money for you to get it back or to meet the certain requirement. So travelers should contact the South African Reserve Bank prior for arriving or leaving the country, so that you can get approval and get more information about the money that you need to bring in or bring out. But besides that, any foreign currency can be actually exchanged in most of our ports or in our country. So the clearance of cargo, there is a form which is called SC Form 55. So these are just the forms that clarify the process that you need to follow. It is in our systems, and I felt like I won't be in a position just to take you through that. So we also say if we request supporting documents, there is also a form that indicates what type of requirements, what type of supporting document that customs or SAS needs should they request supporting documents. So that is in our website. If you go through that form and you click reference to that one, the computer, I mean, our internet will be able to flag that and produce that to you. And then a message to the trader for declaration outcome. The cargo is released from custom control. It's also the process that indicate that once the declaration is done, this is the button that you need to press for your goods to be released, or your goods has been detained by customs, and why is it been detained, and for physical inspection, where you'll be requested to book your goods for physical inspection. Mostly this is happening on the big high volume of goods. And then uncleared goods, and these are goods for which they are in the custom control area. We have rejected them because it does not meet the requirement to enter South Africa, or we don't agree that it must not be cleared. So some travelers just leave those goods there and say, look, I can't go back to my original country for this, or I can't take this backwards. So those goods are left, and then we take it to the state warehouse for the purpose of disposal or for auction. So our clearances of cargo can happen by air, that is mostly in the airports, in our airports, by sea, which is mostly at our harbor, and then by road in all our ports of entry. Customs declaration is also happen there. So a traveler can come by air, and then once it's in South Africa and then have an interest to visit Mozambique or visit Swaziland or visit Namibia, then we can also assist with some declaration processes in that regards. So there are instances where a person is found that you have not followed the Customs and Excise Act. So SAS impose penalties, and these penalties comes in a form of cash or of payments, and depending on what the offense is, if we have committed an offense of trying to smuggle drugs or trying to smuggle items that are not allowed in the country, or maybe being involved in fraudulent activities where you are illegally trying to smuggle goods without paying the relevant duties, there we can also take criminal action. We can also suspend or cancel the license or the registration of any importer or traveler that we find that we have grossly not complying with the Customs and Excise Act or is involved on criminal activities. But all this process follow a governance process. And then every client must keep a record for a period of 5 years. So it's important that if you import or export, you must keep your records of purchase, invoices, and the declaration in terms of our act. That process needs to be 5 years. And then this also including all necessary documentation for that declaration, and any data related to such document created by means of the computer, it must also be kept for a period of 5 years, and the trader must produce such records upon customs request. So from time to time, customs will, even if we would have released your goods, even if you would have passed with goods, which mostly happen on a commercial cargo, we can call for your good for post-clearance audit. And that's where the record keeping becomes very important, because we can audit, and our act still allow us to impose penalties, even if the goods have already left, or even if the goods have been already in the country and being consumed. So that's why it's important that as a traveler, as a tourist, you must ensure that you keep records of your transactions with SAS. And then these penalties that are just being imposed, as a traveler, as a tourist, as a trader, you are allowed to appeal against such kind of decision. And there is an appeal process in place to ensure that there is governance, there is fairness, there is integrity in all these penalties that are being imposed. So there's an independent appeal committee in terms of our act, where you can appeal in that port, in that branch that you would have passed, and then the committee can take a decision and communicate to you about your appeal. If the penalty was wrongly imposed or the act was wrongly interpreted by SAS, SAS can refund the money, and SAS can communicate with you and pay you back if the appeal is in your favor. And then if the traveler or the tourist or the trader is still not happy with the decision of the branch, and then there is also alternative dispute resolution. And in these disputes, it's happened now from a different committee at a national level, whereby now the local is not involved on the decision that they would have taken. And still, this is done to protect the taxpayer or our client who are using our ports against any possible mistake or abuse or unethical conduct that might have happened, where a penalty might have been imposed wrongly. And again, there is a process in place that governs this, which is available for our external stakeholders in their website. So these are the documents that I felt if we could have done a presentation on this, it would have taken us months. So we've decided to highlight the type of document that you can get if you want to to understand or to be involved on the import and export, or if you want to travel. So you can go to our website, which is www.sas.gov.za, and then you can follow the link, and then you can be in the position to know exactly what is the clearance declaration process, prohibited and restricted. Those goods that are allowed and not allowed, they are properly outlined through this website, and the registration and the licensing process, as well as the state warehouse, how and when do we use the state warehouse, as well as the registration process. So also, it also outlined the forms that you need to complete if you want to apply for certain processes within our act. So there is a form called DA 185, which you use when you want to apply for import and export, or if you want to apply to import or export goods in and out of the country. And also there is a form that is used by travelers and tourists if they want to declare goods in their position, which is DA 331. It's also in our website. Then the importer and exporter declaration form, it's also available in our website. There is a set 501 form, which we use for correcting if maybe you have done the declaration and now you have realized that you have made a mistake. So there is a form called the voucher of correction, which is set 501. And then if you pay for the penalty, you have been a penalty imposed on you, there's a form called DA 70, which is application to make provisional payment. We call that money a provisional payment because the client must make a call if you want to appeal or not appeal. If you appeal and it becomes successful, that money is paid back. That's why it's not a money that SAS takes as a direct payment. Or if it's an appeal, then it happens that the appeal does not work in the favor of the traveler or a trader. So it's only when then that money can be made as a direct payment to SAS. So if you want to appeal, as I've highlighted in the previous slide, there's a form DA 51 that you need to complete for the internal administration appeal process, which is also available in our system. And then the alternative disputes, if you are not happy with the internal appeal at the branch level, then you go for the DA 52 form, which is also available in our website. So this is just our website, as I've just highlighted. It has some critical information, which also help and guide the travelers and tourists that before they can embark on any trip, they can be able to be properly updated with the information and with the forms that they need to complete, and they can do that before they can take the trip or before they can be in our ports of entry. And then also the contact center as well as the email, should you need information for the support from our side. Thank you very much. That's all from our side regarding the import and export for international travel in and out of South Africa. Thank you very much.